proud to be here today. A bit about Rich. I am also very incredibly grateful to Rich for being a huge inspiration to me. And echoing what some people said, he really gave me a chance. And although Joe Graves did suggest that the grad committee take a look at my sketchy application, I was very clueless. I'm very impressed by graduate students who go into programs now, just what they want to do with their career, and they have it kind of figured out ahead of time, and I only was interested in evolution. That's it. And I was very naive about the future, I admit that. And Rich, you definitely helped me learn a lot of lessons. So it was difficult thinking about what I should talk about today. And especially I had to hold some material back because presumably you're going to have like a retirement party at some point. Maybe not. You didn't even blink an eye. So I did hold back a little bit of material. But I do want to talk about some of the time that I spent in Rich's lab in the early 90s when I was at UC Irvine and some of the lessons that he taught me. So in these other pictures that you saw this morning, we're just kind of looking off, maybe thinking about other topics, but he might have been thinking about why did he take this person into his lab? And for sure, don't let him anywhere near the long-term line, because I don't know if there's any other student who's never transferred to us. Maybe it's not surprising. So at UC Irvine in 89, 91, around that time, I guess we're on the 5th or 7th floor of the engineering building, something like that. And that's where the baby LTE is. That's not really the picture of the babies on the right there, but they were infantile at the time that I came into the lab. And the other players in the lab, John Mittler, who you heard about this morning, he was the senior student studying microbiology. And then there was also Mike. And nothing to add to that. So, Sarita Bassi was also in the lab at that time. And you can see by my footwear that I was learning from Rich some of the academic dress down. And the other person was Valeria. I think she was the only postdoc in the lab at that time. But it was a great crew of people who were very supportive to me, and I learned as much from them as I did from Rich. Maybe not Mike, at least not what I would have did. But it was really a terrific crew of people. So my first thesis project, I thought was just my idea. It was about the coevolution of carrion birds in the Duckmore. Because I thought this must be, I was really into coevolution, and Rich and I met every day. I had all these ideas about coevolution. I had no idea what we really should work with. And I think we talked for 20 minutes, and you convinced me that microbes were the way to go. So riffing on that, I still had this passion and care for charismatic megafauna, including vultures, which I thought, that's got to be hard making a living this way, eating rotting flesh. So I went into Rich's office and proposed this project to him, and I think the word is guffaw. He just lost it. And when he stopped laughing and the coffee was not going out of his nose anymore, he basically said, no, there's no way you're going to do that project. So unfortunately, now we know that that's a little thing that we call the microbiome. It could have been on the front lines of this, but I won't hold it against you, Rich. Circa 1990. Anyway, so he said, do you have any other ideas? And fortunately, it didn't take much convincing that there's just so much power even in bacteria and their genetic elements to use them as model systems. So to get to a little bit of the science, at that time, Rich brought to my attention this great paper by Lenski from '88. And the fact that conjugate plasmids are these genetic elements that sort of feel their own forces of selection, and that they will transfer both horizontally and vertically. You can think of them as great model systems for parasites that transmit through those superbugs. And kind of at this time, the HIV/AIDS crisis was happening. We had a graduate student in the department who died of AIDS while I was there. So there was a tremendous feeling of importance for parasite systems and what was happening in them. And also around that time, Ann Anderson and others were producing theory on evolution of virulence, that everybody was reading these papers and helping to explain why ecology matters and host-parasite interactions, and how you won't have parasites inevitably evolving to be mutualists. That was a very popular idea around that time. But that there are forces in the environment, and the ecology matters, that will dictate the evolution of virulence levels. And I won't go into the well-known example of Mixola virus that was attempted to be used as a biocontrol agent in Australia, and it did not work as well in the field as it did in the lab, and it sort of settled on an evolved virulence level that was much less than useful. One of my favorite academic books was this this book that was an edited volume, but there was a chapter in it by Bruce Levin and Rich Lenski called Evolution of Bacteria and Their Viruses and Plasmids. And that was just more fodder for me to think about the power of using microbial systems to address a lot of the questions that were jazzing me at the time. So the overarching thing I want to say is that if you have parasites, where here in this example, if you consider horizontal transmission alone, vertical transmission alone, or the net effect across host density as an ecological variable, then the more virulent parasite, B, the one that is able to infect more hosts per unit time, will gain an advantage of that at high density. But if you just consider transmission across generations and the fact that virulent parasites can cause a greater fitness deficit in their hosts, then you would expect that that wouldn't be controlled by host density, but that less virulent parasites, A, would be favored over the more virulent ones, B. And when you take it together, what I'm trying to say is that there are environmental conditions at which you would think that virulence can go up, or there are other conditions where it will go down. So Rich and I did an experiment on this in bacterial plasmids, and underlying, see, all this trade-off theory was important to what May and Anderson were talking about and others were talking about. But a lot of the underlying assumption about whether these modes of transfer would trade off with each other, actually, as far as I know, had not been demonstrated. And in our paper from 98 with Vaughn Cooper, what you're seeing here is on the y-axis, that's essentially the rate of horizontal transmission. And on the x-axis is the degree of fitness burden to the bacteria caused by these plasmids. And essentially, they're going in two different directions. If they go down one path and they become more virulent, they can't have their cake and eat it too. They're going to be a greater burden on their hosts. So that was really cool and satisfying, except that before our paper was published, I was scooped in the sense that Jim Bull is just a terrific scientist. He and his colleagues had a very similar paper that is very well cited, and deservedly so. But I was dejected over this. I was really feeling happy about a project that was working, and yet at the same time, we found out that I was scooped. So this led me to a couple of lessons. One is that I got this from Rich, that you have to be realistic and practical about your choice of study system, and I try and tell my own students that you might want to study carrion birds and their gut flora. And maybe under some circumstances you could do that, but in the engineering building at UCI, I think Rich knew that we shouldn't be bringing rotting carcasses. I'll give him that one. And big ideas should be pursued, but you can't be overly dismayed if other people pursue them and they find those discoveries first. This is the way science works. In the same way as I remember learning from you that, ultimately a lot of our ideas, well, at least maybe mine, I don't know yours, will eventually be overturned as a street of science, because this is the way the process works and the way the field works. And you have to be happy each day with the fact that ultimately a lot of your discoveries might be overturned. So anyway, I learned those lessons from you, and I really appreciate that. Another thesis project that I proposed was testing ecological coexistence between E. coli genotypes. And these are a couple of graphs from Bruce's paper in 1972 that was talked about this morning, where on the left, if you have this demographic trade-off where one genotype is advantaged under low resource conditions, and then it switches later on that the other genotype is advantaged under other conditions, then essentially you'd expect them to go to an equilibrium and you start improving initial frequency. That's what's shown on the right. So with Valeria Salsa, this is the only long-term experimental evolution paper that I'm on. I believe you know, again, I didn't do any of the transfers in the lab. I'm not bitter about it or anything. I think even you offered for Zach before you left town. There's still time. I can come by tomorrow. Maybe Zach will be 6 and I'll be 6. So what I'm trying to get at is in Rich's experiment, we took some of the strains at a certain time period. I guess it was generation 7000, and we put into them more genetic variation through recombination rather than just spontaneous mutation.
You turned off the TV.
Yes, that's right. Turn off the TV, which for me is hard. The dynamics that we saw, and actually this is not the population that we keyed on for another paper that we talked about in a moment, but sometimes you would see that there would be two genotypes coming out of that offshoot experiment that they would coexist through time. And clearly the dynamic through time showed that. And it allowed me to go back and do similar experiments to what Bruce had done in that 72 paper. So similarly here we have a lac plus and a lac minus genotype because this was a marker that came in through the experiment itself. But the point is that they are going to an internal equilibrium. But in this graph, there's a sort of a left side and a right side to that. And that's because the experiment was put on hold for me to go to the first big conference that I ever attended. And it was in lovely Hilo, Hawaii. And with beautiful locations like this at the University of Hawaii at Hilo, one might not attend all of the conferences, especially if your then girlfriend, future wife was with you at the time, backpacking around Hawaii. So that was a great time, but it led to this asterisk in the graph. Amazingly, even people in my own group tell me about this. Oh yeah, that was the time we went to Hawaii. So anyway, now we know that glycerol, through frozen storage, that you can start up these interacting genotypes from the freezer, and one of them will gain an advantage. But when that glycerol disappears, they'll go back to an equilibrium. So I'd say we've learned something from this. But that explains the asterisk in the graph. And I am fiercely supportive of my students going to science conferences. I think it's great for networking. It's a great way to give your first talk, give your first poster. It just so happened I brought a poster with me to Hawaii. There was a blackout at the poster session, so I didn't even get a chance to talk about my poster. But everybody ate a lot of sushi because the air conditioning failed and we really wanted to eat it before it went bad. So I do really support students attending science conferences, but maybe I should insist on a detailed summary of what they saw at the conference and its proceedings. Otherwise, they're going to repeat what I've done in the past. So thanks, Rich. You were superb at creating a great environment in the laboratory, researchers who were passionate about what they did, just the same as you. And you were also just a great example of how to balance life and work. And, very much. Now it disagrees with me. Well, on her birthday, I'll tell a different story. But also, Mary Beth, thanks you. She's not here today, but I do appreciate you figuring out how miserable I was at times with Lansing, and then I should go back to Irvine more than occasionally, just work with Al Bennett. I was very fortunate to have you be supportive of that. And leaving people like me and Mike in charge of the lab when we went off to Oxford when we first moved to Michigan State, and Mike discovering that you can use a gas jet in the lab to function like a blowtorch. Even destroy a blacktop lab bench that was apparently heat resistant, but maybe that's no, you can't say anything, you hadn't done.